European Film Award noms were released this week, but we're more interested in the Gotham Awards. Kevin Jagernauth, we have a couple of categories that we can look at. Is this an event that you get excited for?
Usually no, but I think, I mean, it's one of many awards in a long award season. But the nice thing about the Gothams is that they usually put the spotlight on a lot of the kind of smaller films that you and I love. So, and particularly in a year where these films have more of a chance to go on to Oscar glory,
Mm-hmm.
the Gothams are pretty significant this year.
So the Gotham Awards are actually the first one out of the gate. They've always been. Usually it's towards the end of November, beginning of December. Not this year, but the next edition is going to be on January 11th. So that's right before Sundance, and it's several months before the Indie Spirit Awards. So I agree with you. It does give the spotlight on a lot of the smaller titles. And it's something that I never really put too much weight because every single category is voted by a very small jury in terms of who the nominations are. And so we had sort of, as the year was progressing, we sort of thought that this would be a Eliza Hittman fight versus Kelly Reichardt versus Nomadland, and it turns out that might be the case here. So let's handicap a couple of main categories, beginning with Best Feature. And what we know this year is people who identify as a she or her will win the Best Feature category. So Kevin, let's go through the noms. We have The Assistant, First Cow, Never Rarely, Sometimes Always, Nomadland, and perhaps the surprise of the category, Relic by Natalie Erica James. It's her directorial debut. This feature was part of the lineup at Sundance in the horror their horror section, the midnight section. So what were your first impressions at an all-female category?
It was awesome to see all the features directed by women. That's kind of a big deal. I was happy to see The Assistant get some love. I think it was an excellent film, and I'm glad that even though it was released, I think in February, it hasn't been forgotten. And Relic is a big surprise. I think it's a big boost for Natalie Eric James, and I think we shouldn't forget that Jake Gyllenhaal and the Russo brothers put themselves as producers on that film, so they clearly recognize her talent as well. So she'll be a filmmaker certainly to watch, and certainly getting much more attention as the award season comes on.
I believe she's already in the writing phase, packaging her next feature. So clearly this category, for me, belongs to Nomadland. I don't see how First Cow or Never Rarely, Sometimes Always, I don't see how, I feel as if those two might cancel themselves out. Do those odds make sense to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it still stands as true now as it did in September, that Nomadland is really going to be the film to beat, I think, across the board, both with, the Gothams and the Indie Spirits, and at the Oscars as well. I mean, there's few films this year that have been as universally loved as that film has been.
You're right about that. So yesterday, the Twitter embargo was lifted on the reactions to Ma Rainey's, and it looks like no one will stand a chance in the Best Actor category. So let's look at the nominees and why I just gave the thumbs up to Chadwick Boseman as a win.
Yeah, so we have Riz Ahmed for Sound of Metal, Chadwick Boseman for Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, Jude Law for The Nest, John Magaro for First Cow, and Jessie Plemons for I'm Thinking of Ending Things. Kind of interesting in this category, 3 of the 5 nominees are in streaming films, which is kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But a pretty strong array of talent. But you're right, it's more than likely we're looking at a Boseman win.
Yeah, and I'm happy for Jude Law. I saw The Nest at Sundance, and I thought it was a remarkable performance, layered character, and I th- I don't think Jesse Plemons is getting enough credit for his performance. It's just a nutty, dark, early September release from Netflix that I'm happy that it got um, added to the list here. But I don't see that those two performances overtaking what we still don't know. We don't know Chadwick's performance yet, but like I was saying, the Twitter storm last night, yesterday, was fairly positive in his direction. So, do you think this is something that'll extend itself to the Oscars and potentially the Indie Spirits as well?
Yeah, I think so. I think we can expect to see this continue. This love for Chadwick Boseman continue. I think we'll see it for the next few months ahead. And you make a good point about Jesse Plemons. I mean, that's the kind of role. I mean, it's not a showy performance. It's certainly a character that's not particularly likable, and those kind of performances often get overlooked. So you're right. It's kind of nice that he gets some credit here for his work.
So, in the Best Actress category, I'd argue that we have also a clear front runner. What's sort of notable here in the one of the major snubs, perhaps, for the Best Picture, Best Feature category is Minari, and I don't believe you've seen it yet.
No, I haven't seen it yet.
So yeah, it reminds me that's perhaps the biggest snub here, and it's perhaps a mistake on A24's part where they positioned it a little bit too late on the calendar. Do you think that might be the case?
Yeah, I mean, that's an excellent point. A24 has quite a few films that, or maybe not quite a few, but a couple films that I think we would have expected in a normal year to get a bit of an awards push. I know there's like Twitter conversation about Minari, but I don't know how extensively they've sent out screeners and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also that what's that Riley Keough film from Sundance?
That's Sola, so that hasn't shored up.
No, but A24 had a teaser for it like 2 months ago, and then nothing. So it's been a weird. A24's sort of how they're navigating COVID has been a bit touch and go. Like I haven't really figured out what their strategy is. So yeah, it's a bit surprising not to see it here, but it could just be a product of they haven't been pushing it that much, at least not yet. I mean, we'll see what they still have quite a long road ahead before Indie Spirits and Oscars and those kind of things. So we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, and it did win the grand jury prize, and it won the audience award at Sundance. So that's there's perhaps a miscalculation there. Specifically in this category, I wanted to mention the excellent performance of Haley Bennett in Swallow. I would have loved to.
Yeah, but let's first. I don't think we've run through the nominees, so I'll just run
Yeah,
through them
sure, go
quickly.
for it.
We have Nicole Beharie for Miss Juneteenth, Jessie Buckley for I'm Thinking of Ending Things, which I think is just as much of a surprise as Jesse Plemons. Carrie Coon for The Nest, Frances McDormand, as expected, for Nomadland, and I'll try and pronounce this correctly, Young-Jun Yoon for Minari. But you're right. Sorry, go ahead about Haley Bennett. Sorry.
Well, I'll go back a bit there and to say that Carrie Coon actually, she's aces in The Nest as well, and I'm happy to see her part of this, included in this 5-person slot. But yeah, going to Haley Bennett, a very awkward, difficult film to promote, and more or less going with the same line of thinking that you're putting out there for Jesse Plemons. Not an unlikable character, but there's just so much queasiness in Swallow that normally, I don't know, I'm thinking back to Toni Collette's performance with in the Ari Aster film, and it sort of like belongs to that category where it's not a dramatic role. It's just an awkward duckling role, and I could see why she perhaps didn't get enough love in this category here.
Yeah, I actually, it's funny. I just watched Swallow a few nights ago. I loved it. That was a great film. And yeah, she's really remarkable. And you're right. It's a performance where it's it's very internal for a lot of the film, and it's very mannered in a very particular way. But it's great work. And you're right. I think it's a film that probably could use a bit more love across the board. But it's a tricky one. I mean, it's a very specific kind of tone it goes with, and you either ride that wavelength or you don't. But it's a great film, so go see it. Go see it, everyone.
Definitely a hard sell. We'll next tackle the best screenplay category. We have Bad Education, and I'll come back to Bad Education after unveiling the noms, but we have First Cow, the 40-year-old version, 14, and the Vast of Night. So a collection of different film entities, an exciting category. I think that this might be like the sympathy vote that goes to Kelly Reichardt because of Nomadland, that it's going to dominate the conversation. For Bad Education, it's funny because it's HBO that picked up the film, and they push it as something that it premiered at TIFF, and then it premiered on HBO as a television film. So I'm finding it awkward that it sort of like was able to find love here, or I'm not really sure how the rules apply here. And lastly, The Vast of Night was a small film out of South by, I believe, or no, actually it was from Slamdance. And Prime Video gave it a really good push. And so it's nice to see this is really a microfilm, small in budget, but large in ideas. And we at Ion Cinema, we gave it a fairly good review. So it's really an interesting category.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that this seems to be a category where films that we don't see in any of the other categories, aside from First Cow, are getting some attention. And it is cool to see The Vast of Night get some love. It was out on Amazon, similar to Bad Education. It kind of just went straight to a streaming thing. And I remember seeing like a small Twitter swirl around it, but then not hearing much after that. But it's cool. It's getting some attention and some love for those screenwriters. But you're right. I think this is probably Kelly Reichardt's win for First Cow, and deservedly so. It's a great story, great script. So
Yeah, indeed. We'll conclude with two of the breakthrough categories. One is called the breakthrough actor category, and this is a category that, gender, who cares about gender, which is a good thing. We have Jasmine Batchelor from The Surrogate, which is a very small indie film that found a lot of love and picked up a lot of buzz post South by Southwest online screening. We have one of the actors in One Night in Miami. So this is like the sole nomination, I believe, for One Night in Miami, and that's Kingsley Benadir. We have the pairing in Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always. Another First Cow nomination is Orion Lee, who plays King Lu, and he's the one who develops the economics of the biscuit, I believe, selling in Kelly Reichardt's film. And we also have Kelly O'Sullivan, who is the writer, I believe, co-director, and the star of this another abortion-themed film in St. Francis. So a collection of films that belong to all these different release campaign or strategy spheres, one dating back all the way to Telluride, and one that's more recent and fresh with showing in Venice and TIFF. So yeah, a nice coterie of actors, actresses here.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is always a fun category because it just shines a light on people who just make these films kind of special and don't often get the recognition. I think I'm really happy to see Orion Lee in this category. He's just so magnetic and so good in First Cow. So I'm just really happy to see that nomination. Yeah, I mean these are all actors that we are going to have our eye on.
For me, these latter two categories really are the fun categories, because it's the type of films that a lot of people I know would have missed out on, and so it really is putting the spotlight on things that fly under the radar all the time. And the final category is the Bingham Ray Breakthrough Director Award. So we have Rada Blank for the 40-year-old version. We have Channing Godfrey Peoples for Miss Juneteenth. We have Carlo Mirabella Davis, again, Swallow. We have Andrew Patterson for The Vast of Night, and Alex Thompson for St. Francis. So going back to St. Francis, she didn't co-direct, but she co-wrote with Alex Thompson. So a lot of these films started surfing the film festival circuit in 2019. So they positioned themselves fairly early, and they weren't forgotten. So that's fun. And it really is a nice collection of filmmakers that are on their first and second films. And I think Rada Blank might have the edge here. What do you think about the noms here?
Yeah, I mean, I think Rada Blank certainly will have the edge. I mean, she won the directing award at Sundance for the film. I'm actually glad to see. I didn't realize Carlo Mirabella Davis. I'm glad to see him here for Swallow. That's really awesome, because it's just, again, it's so fresh in my mind since I just saw it. But the direction is so like precise. Like it's such a precise piece of work, a piece of direction, in a way that doesn't feel like pretentious or show-offy. It suits everything in the movie. So it's cool to see him get some shout out there. And yeah, again, back to the Vast of Night people. That's a great journey for that filmmaker right now. And to see that recognition here is really cool.
Yeah, The Swallow is just so much fun. It's so clinical. It's so precise. The color palette is quite outstanding, and I can imagine it having been made for like less than $1 million easy. And I think one snub in this category potentially might be the filmmaker for The Surrogate, which played extremely well critically afterwards. So if we had to look at the draft, perhaps it was positioned at number 6 or 7.
I'm Eric Lavallée. I'm editor-in-chief and site owner for IONCINEMA.com. And this is
Kevin Jagernauth, contributing writer for the playlist.
And together we are IndieSponge.